Hi, welcome to Murf+E Unfiltered Zero BS Biz Talk. I'm Kathleen Murphy, your host. I'm here today with my special co-host, Edward Mosley. How are you, Edward?
I am good, Kathy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I had an interesting experience coming into the studio today. I won't get into that, but I'm just hoping that down where you live, I believe you're in Virginia, is that right?
That is correct.
That you don't have ice and that you are not challenged with getting into your residence or place of work by ice.
No, I think yesterday morning we had some ice in certain spots, but so far, obviously no golf weather, but
No,
hey, we're
exactly.
we're here and we're safe.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you being here today, and I'm gonna tee this up properly. Today, we're going to talk about the concept of successful leadership habits, and do you have them? But before we get into that, I'm going to give our audience a feel for who you are, because I was so impressed when I was reading your background. I had the pleasure of being on your podcast recently, which thank you very much for including me on that. And I had so much fun doing that. I said, gosh, I would love to have you on my podcast. So thank you for being here today. So Edward Mosley is a retired Marine combat veteran with 22 years of honorable service. He is a consummate professional speaker and an internationally recognized expert leadership coach. With over 30 years of experience, Edward also has impeccable credentials and experiences, including 3 degrees in business administration, human resources management and development, and entrepreneurial management. He is also an associate certified professional coach, which is recognized by the International Coaching Federation. Edward is also a published author and expert in leadership development and self-discovery, and is the CEO and founder of Limitless Bounds, LLC. Additionally, Edward is an esteemed member of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, Inc., Omicron Alpha Lambda chapter in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Whoa. Gosh, when do you sleep?
No, no.
And
That's a crazy question, but that's just the iceberg of things that's just going on. There's no time to rest.
no, and I don't even think that I included in there, and I don't think I'm imagining this, but I believe either you've already achieved it or you're in the process of acquiring a PhD. Is that correct?
I am in the process of doing that right now.
Fantastic. So I can't wait to hear about when you finish that, because who knows what will be after that. But that's incredibly impressive.
I'm gonna rest then. No, I'm just joking.
No rest for you. You've got too much going on. You got to keep going. I love it. There are too many people in this world that you need to impact. So today, what we're going to get into is we're going to be talking about leadership and successful habits in a couple different capacities. When you think about leadership, there are numerous ways, if you will, dimensions, if you will, for defining success. The first one that comes to my mind is typically money, but that's obviously not the only version of success that people can have. I like to think about health from both the mental health and physical health perspective. You can have success in terms of friendship, family, spirituality, experiences, education, and integrity. These are all different things. There are also different measurements for success, as we both know, and some of these could be along the lines of being dependable, having integrity, or being trustworthy. Maybe even just being on time. That's a good one as well. And we need to consider the question that I think too many people don't necessarily take the time to unpack, which is, how was success attained, right? So if you take you, for example, I'm going to go into asking you some questions because I want to dive into learning more about exactly that. But the first question that I have to you is, what was the catalyst for your drive to study strategic leadership? When I found out that that was something that you had done, I was so fascinated. I couldn't wait to talk to you more about this.
Yeah. So one of the things, well, that made me want to really look at it from more of a strategic level, it that's where you can have more influence. Uh,
Mm.
That's where you can make more change, and it 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 takes away that operational look, the frontline look, and it now you're able to see the organization from a big perspective. And if you look at it from the amount of top years, the strategic look is that 5 year look. That's that where do I want to be in 3 to 5
Sure.
years?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's what made me really um looking at it from a strategic level of leadership.
So, what's the difference between, say, strategic leadership and non strategic leadership? What does that look like? And does someone realize that they may not, in fact, be a strategic leader and they think that they are? Can you give me an example, maybe, of an encounter that you've had where someone clearly was mistaken in terms of how they thought they were looking at their leadership being strategic and it wasn't?
Yeah. So if you just look at it from the day-to-day manager, the first line, frontline supervisor, he's just managing the employees as they come to work. He's managing their day-to-day task. Um, and he's just, wants to know what you're doing today. Um, because we have been assigned to do this as a team, or the department. That's what we're required to do.
Right.
So as you keep going up the chain, now you're not looking at it from the day-to-day perspective. You're looking at it from, okay, this is a major mover for the organization. How do we get these departments to work together to be for one goal?
Right.
If I were to break it down into, let's just look at a check. No, I don't know if anybody uses checkbooks anymore, but let's just look at it from a
I have
daily
one.
budget. I know I have checks and never used them, but if we just looked at it from a personal finance perspective, right?
Mhm.
If I know I'm getting $1,000, $2,000, and I have bills to pay with that. How do I manage those bills? When do I pay them? When is my next paycheck? What if I want savings? What if I want to go on a trip? That's looking at it from a big strategic level. Like, what do I want to do throughout the year?
Right. I like
I
that.
want to take this trip. Do I want to take this trip? What's my emergency fund?
Sure.
And each department and each person plays a role in the organization in that big picture. And they just don't know, they don't know what their role is in there.
Did you have a leader inspire you early in your life? And do they know that they did so? And who might that be if you're willing to share that with us?
Yeah, I had so my journey started when I was in the military. And
Okay.
I remember so I joined the military in 1988, so that should tell you where I am in age. And so one
A
of my
young spring
early
chicken.
yeah, exactly. One of my first leaders that sat me down, he asked me this simple question. It was his name is he's a retired Marine Corps general. His name was Willie Williams. And he asked me, I was his aide, executive assistant, I should say, and he asked me, did I play golf?
Oh,
And I told him, no, I didn't play golf. I didn't, it wasn't a sport that I had played or not really sure if I was interested in it. And he said, well, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go out and get you a beginner, just a set of golf clubs. And we're going to start going to the golf range.
oh.
And he and another general were golfers. They took me out there and they basically said that there are so many deals, there's so many decisions, there's so many people, your network that you meet on a golf course that you would never have the opportunity to meet just sitting in the office, just doing that. The first experience, they took me out to the golf course on Andrews Air Force Base.
Oh, wow. That's
And I ended
cool.
up meeting Secretary of Defenses. I ended up meeting some very senior individuals within the federal employment and government employment and military. And it was just, I was in awe.
Did you
And ever
like it?
since then, huh?
Did you like it? Did you have to acquire liking the sport, or did you just
I
kind of,
love the sport.
you loved it right away?
That is my happy place. Um, yeah, that is my happy place. It's we won't even go down that path, but yeah, that is a happy place where there is so much discussed and talked about doing a round of golf that you would never imagine.
I love hearing that. And I remember a long time ago somebody giving me some advice along those lines as well, in terms of golf was one of those sports that could be kind of an equalizer, and that it was something that I was encouraged to try and to see if I liked it. And I was athletic, so I figured I'd probably be able to pick it up. I just didn't know what it would mean and what kind of doors it might open for me, and how, in fact, it did level the playing field. But I remember in business being asked, and I didn't golf all consistently, let's just say, but I had the advantage of being athletic enough where I could just kind of almost pick it right back up, like riding a bike, and just jump in, and a few strokes later, I'm back to where I was before. And I just remember how disengaging and just how much fun you could have, even though it's a competitive sport, and how much you can get to know people on such a different level just by way of that one sport. It was really magical.
Yeah, and there's no rank, or there's no all you know me on the golf course is just, hey, I'm Edward. And
Right.
I know you by Kathy. And I may not know what Kathy does, but by the
That's
time
right.
we finish around the golf, we're exchanging business cards. We may have exchanged ideas, or we may have even had some friendly discussion over who's going to make a shot or not. And
Ex-
that extends into a bigger conversation at a different day. Now we're friends.
exactly. I feel like it fast tracks that process. And there are a lot of different things in life that you can do where that occurs. So I've always had this fascination with leadership, both in business and sports. And I picked up this fascination back many years ago when I began playing sports. The first organized sport that I probably would say that I was playing that was competitive was tennis. I swam before that, but I didn't like competitive swimming. I just liked swimming for the sake of swimming. But tennis, I like to compete in. And then from there, that led me to other sports. I was a soccer player and lacrosse player, and it was from the love of sports and understanding being competitive, the aspects of leadership and seeing leadership also in a different light, especially with starting out with sports, in terms of how the coaches would lead you as a player, as a team. And I had a chance to experience some different coaches, which was great. And then in business, that led me to also start taking notice of which leaders, which bosses were better leaders than others, and why some of them were better than others. And one of the things that I've been able to do is take, by way of the business that I run, I am able to share common traits and good habits with other leaders if, in fact, I find that maybe some don't have them in the practice that I have. But one of the ways, so I like to say that I like to pollinate, good habits, good leadership habits with others and share them. And one of the ways that I picked up on doing this was by way of a sports coach research project that I embarked upon during COVID. To make a long story short, I wanted to learn a little bit more about the leadership characteristics and what made teams successful or not successful by way of the leadership coaching that was taking place. And so a couple of the takeaways that I learned from leadership habits for those sports coaches that were successful was that they were more authentic. They allowed themselves to be actually genuine, whereas other non-performing sports coaches always felt kind of like they had to be a preservationist and not let people sort of in and know that much about them. They also certainly didn't take a strategic leadership viewpoint. They are also caring as a habit, which was, that may sound like, gosh, really? But yes, that was one of them. Unconditional trust was another. And striking balance. That was something that was really, as we know, balance is difficult to achieve, right? Hence the name itself. It's difficult to balance. And then saying it is one thing and doing it is another thing. But I'm curious about from your military influence and your thoughts on strategic leadership, maybe some of the characteristics that you saw that some of these leaders had that you've perhaps adopted or maybe shared with others.
Yeah. So one of the things that I still use to this day is this philosophy of, if every person in your workforce,
Uh-huh.
uh, if they understand the vision and the mission, then that's 90% of the problem right there, right?
Right.
And I get that from the military. And so what does that look like in the military, right? So we train and we practice every potential scenario of war or evacuation or humanitarian. We practice and we train that. We practice and we train that in cold environments, hot environments, wet environments, because we want to see if our weapons will function properly. We want to see if our mental will function properly. We
Right.
want to see if our chain of command will function, our communication will function. And in doing so, what that does is it we understand that if we understand the philosophy of the next man up, right?
Yeah.
So if a leader gets hurt or he's out of the picture, the next person, the next senior person in charge, or the next person up is going to take that command and control and they're going to move forward.
Right.
So if we have to move left or right or in reverse or something, everybody within the team understands we have already practiced this. So real time scenarios, it prepares us for real time responses. And I think if organizations, if companies will stop being scared of practicing and putting in place, for instance, succession plans.
Right.
There are so
Exactly.
many organizations that do not have succession plans.
That's true.
Or there are so many organizations out there that do not have a good, valuable leadership development program.
True.
Or they don't want to send employees to coaching or mentoring. If they would get out of that pattern and start training individuals and developing individuals to be leaders in their organization,
Right.
then the organization will be better. Now, are you going to lose people once they get a training? Yeah, you are. But guess what? You just empowered them to be a better person. And they're going to say, hey, you know what? They trained and developed me to a better person. So now somebody wants to work for the organization. It's a total different play on development. And that's what a lot of organizations don't do.
It's funny you should bring that up, and I'm thrilled that you did, because I recently learned that based on the professional development that I was doing with one of my corporate clients, and they only shared this with me fairly recently. I didn't know this, and it just kind of came up almost casually in conversation. But based on the leadership development training that I'd done for them, and to your point, yes, people could be a flight risk, right, when you put that effort into them and they could go elsewhere. But the opposite impact actually occurred. What occurred was that these leaders became stronger leaders within the organization, and they retained their teams, and they looked over the course of the year that they had taken their leadership training to the point where they were looking at, okay, what do we do next? And they realized, oh my gosh, our attrition level is usually a problem, and we barely scratch the surface in terms of spending money on recruitment. We saved $2 million in recruitment fees, not having to backfill leaders and then other members of teams because of that investment that was made in the people for leadership. So if that doesn't speak volumes, I don't know what does in terms of what it can do, right?
Now, Kathy, part of this mental struggle that I'm having right now is as I'm on this strategic leadership journey, and will become an expert in this area. You look at the structure of organizations, you look at the demographics of organizations, and when you talk about highly successful teams, you're looking at bringing in skills and knowledge and diverse experiences and diverse, just a diverse workforce, right?
Yes.
But then as you look at the things that are going on right now within America,
Yes.
um, we're not seeing that.
No.
And
No.
our
The opposite.
companies, whether they're federal, local, or state or corporate, we're in a spot to where if we don't make some pivots and we don't really look at the importance and the return on investment, if we lose the workforce, then how is the work going to get done?
Well, not only that, but I love the point that you brought up that it's pretty obvious that there isn't the diversity that we need to have when we look around. And both you and I know, in terms of studying what we study in our areas of expertise, that homogeneous teams don't necessarily provide you with the strongest and best teams. It's those different teams, those unique teams, and the unique characters and strengths that people bring to a team that make it a strong team. But people are reluctant from a human nature perspective to sometimes surround themselves with people that are different than them because they think it's easier to just have everybody agree and think the same way. What they don't unfortunately recognize is the fact that that's actually not serving you well, that you're better served by different points of view. And I always, when I'm talking to people, I always try to look for that common ground because I find it almost boring if I come across somebody that thinks exactly the way that I do. I want to be challenged. I want to be thinking differently, but I can't do that if I'm surrounding myself with people that are exactly the same. And we're better off as just humans when we do surround ourselves with people that, even though it may be uncomfortable, are different from us. We're way better off, right? And we have plenty of examples to serve, as I'm sure you've learned about that in all your studying, to represent that being the case, that we're better off with.
I mean, just think about it even from a sports perspective, and I know that's your area. What if you've trained your players to be the best they can be? Y'all put all the hours in, all the work in. They're in shape, they're motivated, and all of a sudden they get to the line, or the ball is inbounded, or the referee gets out the way, and it's a live play, and all of a sudden the defense or the opponent takes a portion of that play away.
Mm.
Have we trained our players? Have we trained our employees to have we developed them enough to where they can pivot, where they can make that move and still succeed and provide the level of performance that we're looking for?
I don't know. We unfortunately, I like what you described earlier in terms of how the military trains you for all kinds of different instances. In business and in sports, that isn't necessarily something that is readily adopted by most teams, if you will, whether they're a business team or a sports team, which is unfortunate, right? Because, well, you should have, if you're a sports team, different plays based on different circumstances that can occur, because you're going to run into difficult situations and challenges, and you can't always expect that it's going to go perfectly. So then what do you do? If you don't have a play or if you haven't practiced how to mitigate that risk of now things not going well for you, you're not going to perform well under any circumstance. So that's unfortunate.
And if I may, I just want to, and I'm not saying I like the teams. You don't have to like them, but
No,
if
you don't.
if you were to look at the Patriots under Brady,
Yes.
if you were to look at the Kansas City Chiefs,
Yes.
or even the Bulls, or any of those teams that had the that has had 3, 4, 5, or 6 rings right after each other. They have a system.
Yes.
They practice it. They've worked on options. They've worked on alternatives. They worked on time management. They have looked at every potential option, and those players know what the play is. What happens in this scenario? What happens if our number 2 can't get the ball, or the quarterback has to throw an option vice down the field? They know what to do in every scenario, and it's all about consistency. And development. That's 100% what it's all about.
It really is. And if you will allow me, I have a couple tips that I'd like to share just based on
Yeah.
the time that we have here that I think could be helpful just in terms of supporting the conversation that we're having here. And I'll start out with this one, that is to have people stop blaming everyone else for why you haven't attained the level of success you're seeking. Yes, there may be circumstances beyond your control which prevented you from your attainment, but how about you pause and reconsider that what you haven't achieved yet is possibly because of other circumstances, and perhaps put that mirror in front of yourself, maybe because of you, and maybe you just haven't achieved the success that you're looking for yet, let's just say. And stop talking negatively about others. The old saying, if you don't have something positive to say about someone, don't say anything at all, still applies. If you find yourself speaking negatively about other people, consider why you're doing this. Would you want others to be doing the same thing in reverse? And I don't think that's the case. And so I have a number of other tips that I'm not going to go into today, but if people want to reach out to me at some other point, and I'd be happy to share them with them. Do you have any sort of closing thoughts in terms of this incredible topic that is so rich and deep? And I love the points that we've covered already. Some sort of last thoughts that you might have.
Yeah. I would say, definitely from a leader perspective, you should be consistent.
Yes, love that.
You should empower your employees. If you were to take the hierarchical structure and turn it upside down,
yes,
then you should be serving those that you're leading, empowering them to be the best they can be. And again, they will be so loyal. They will want to be. They will be more engaged. They will actually even recruit others for the organization.
100%. That's that servant leadership approach. I remember one of the sports coaches telling me, and this is something that was sort of radically different that he was doing, and what they would normally do when they're on a trip is the equipment would be taken off the bus and brought into the locker room by the freshmen. And in this case, they would have the coaches and the seniors of that team take the equipment off because it was an honor to serve, and they wanted to show the importance of no one is above or below being able to do important or what might be considered unimportant work, and they wanted to lead by example and show that this is something that we care about. And so I love flipping that triangle around. That's incredible. We've had just some really rich conversation here today, and I could easily see us picking back up on this conversation and carrying it forward for sure. So I'd love to have you come back and do that with me another time. But thank you so much for being here today. And I wanted to just close out with saying thank you to our audience also for being with us, and come back to Murf+E Unfiltered, Zero BS Biz Talk, to hear more exciting topics that will share all kinds of new tips and wisdom with you. Again, thank you, Edward, for being here. It was such a pleasure having you on, and have a great day.